are you waiting for? What are you waiting for?
Go on, give it a big old whack!
What are you waiting for?
You are off your joy. Take one of mine. Oh my lord. He's a downer. Call security. We've got a downer.
Well, here we are. A new series. LMFYFG, otherwise known as Let Me Fix Your Fucking Game. Now, first off, I think it's important to be clear about what the series is and what the series isn't. The series is not a review of games, although I will talk about the good and the bad. The series is also not meant to criticize and belittle games, although I'm sure I will also do that. The intent of this series is to look at games with a good idea, with an appealing or compelling theme and gameplay, so forth, and see where they went wrong, how they could be better. One of my pet peeves is when a fascinating sounding game is ruined, or when a game feels like it could be so much better, but it falls short of the mark, either failing to deliver what it's promised, or just feeling like it should have tried more. Whether due to laziness, greed, devs, publishers, lying, it can be any of these things, or even more than that. It's something that happens a bit too often. And something else that worries me is that the response from gamers is often apathy and defensiveness. I understand the knee-jerk reaction to defend your creation or of something you like, but if we blindly accept the lackluster games we get given with apathy, then innovating and new, interesting ideas will forever be a sideshow, out with the pioneering indie developers. All too often, devs get defensive and aggressive to criticism. Players make excuses for a bad game by saying it could be worse, or it's fun with mods, it's fun with friends. While I think it's important to encourage developers and not be too harsh with their creations, unfortunately at the same time, there is so much money in gaming nowadays. And this has led to heavily supported AAA developers and publishers to effectively stop caring about anything but the research and what will make them the most money, along with a plethora of chances making crappy one-a-week games that just ate current trends and churn out shitty vaporware that inexplicably some people buy. So I just wanted to put out there the core idea of this series is to encourage games to be better and to highlight things that I would like to see and possibly other people would like to see in their games, even the ones they do enjoy. And having said that, I'm sure people will still be upset with what I say, still defend games, and it's fine to be upset with what I say, it's fine to still defend games. I just want to put my opinion out there, and I'll do my best not to be overly harsh with games or criticize them more than needed. Well, having said that, let's look at the evacuated bowels that is We Happy Few. We Happy Few was such an interesting idea. The setting, the story, the art, the style, it all intrigued me. And when it came out in early access, I bought it and played it almost immediately. Even from the start, I liked the survival aspect, the exploration. I mean, it was enough for an early access game, and I was excited to see where the game might go. So where did it all go wrong? Well, if we look at the release of the game, it was a decent time for survival, sandbox games. Unfortunately, after the proof of concept that the early access was, the devs, and I'm assuming here it was the devs, decided to take things kind of in the wrong direction. They decided to split their focus, and we end up with a very unfocused game. So let's talk about that first. Unfocused. The game suffers from being too much and too little simultaneously. The too much is it tried to do too much. It tried to spread itself out as much as possible over multiple different genres and themes. And the too little is that it didn't delve into any of them significantly enough, and we'll get to those points later. But, to broad strokes it, from pointless side quests, long run times from quest to quest, the endless running from quest to quest, little to see or become invested in or even take note of, and an excess of crafting and general just crap in your inventory. I spent my whole time with full pockets with very little use for any of it. Now, to improve on this kind of broad area, I think the best thing to do would be to remove the run times, have 1 or 2 central hubs, possibly just 2 areas, one being in the wilderness with the wastrels, and the other being in the city with the proper citizens. And I think along with this, it'd probably benefit the game actually to remove the majority of side quests and random encounters, unless they could have really focused on them. Because while they're not too bad, they're just boring and they don't add anything to the game. We'll talk more about these later, but yeah, just they add so little to the game. It's an annoying distraction to get side quests. You feel like you should complete them, but at the same time you know that they're going to be boring and annoying, and you just want to finish the game to find out what happens. And I think if there's less focus on these, maybe more important things could be paid attention to. So let's delve into what I feel this game really needed to shine. In terms of gameplay, the gameplay's lacking. It's the core problem the game faces. It just isn't very fun or interesting. It does have its moments. Sometimes you can see the game it should have been. Moments like when you have to face a quiz to get into the next area. There's humor there, an interesting scene. Like, the whole sequence felt like it had proper attention paid to it, unlike many of the sandbox elements in the game. And I legitimately enjoyed that moment, and a few others, but they were just too far and too few in between to be worth the struggle through the mire of sandbox, survival, open world, muggle drug. Crafting could be thrown out completely. It works in the setting, but too often the story requires you to have specific items, healing items, and the components or even the items are often provided to you on the mission, in the mission area, meaning that all the crafting crap you've been gathering is basically useless or worthless. Added on to that, well, aside from healing and the occasional weapon, along with a couple of very specific story-driven clothing needs, I barely needed to craft anything. The survival is mostly easy. I never had any problems with food or water, really. I think I died once through dehydration, and that was just because I ran off because I was bored, and I wasn't close to a water place. I think the problem is the game started as a survival game, needing food and gear to become stronger and progress, and then since the game has been released, it's apparent that the survival and crafting aspect of the game became secondary to the story and the scenery. And every time you face an area with gas, for example, a gas mask is provided. I never needed to create or to find a gas mask. There was always one there for you. Every time you need to power something, there's a power cell. It doesn't feel like a crafting game or a survival game a lot of the time. And as I said, this is the core problem for me. Nothing seems worth the effort in We Happy Few. Crafting is pointless, survival is easy, walking around is boring. The mechanics of fitting in to society is easy. You can push someone and then say hello to them, have a wave at them, and nothing has changed. You can do it over and over again. The leveling system introduced into the release feels like fluff. It meant to seem like you're progressing, when in reality you just want to get to the depth of the story hooks and the mystery of what happened before, and be on your way. Unfortunately, as we'll get into later, that's also not really worth it. combat is basic, the AI is basic, stealth is often not needed, and if it is needed, you can still fight your way out, and it's not great anyway. The side quests do little, reveal little, except for everyone on this island city is kind of an arsehole, and they feel like a chore because they involve running through the samey, bland landscape with little to interest you. One of the main draws is in fact the story, which unfortunately I found it to be half-baked. It's intriguing, don't get me wrong, the idea of an alternate reality where Germans kinda win World War II, maybe? Or possibly they invaded the UK and stole the children, but perhaps the kids all died in a train crash? Or maybe not, and then the Germans left, but there were fake tanks, and you know what? It's fine. It's intriguing. But it's all so disjointed. It's hard to know what happens because the game doesn't really expand on all of its ideas. So, what we're going to do now, instead of going over the story points, which, well, go nowhere, the gameplay and focus problems, we're now going to get to the meat and to veg. So, how to improve the game? How do I think this game would be best made to be better than what we got? Well, to start, remove survival. Remove the majority of crafting. Rework the combat and make stealth more important. Take out the side quests and sandbox in their current state and implement side quests that really reveal story points, lore, introduce characters who are significant, good, bad, ugly. Make the crafting, combat, and stealth unique to the three characters you play as, to make them feel like actual different characters and not just three unique clones who were hastily bodged to seem different on release. And having taken out survival, the majority of crafting and the sandbox aspects of the game, instead focus on the idea of needing to fit in divergent societies, where you face scrutiny and police and even secret police style threats. It would be fascinating to have a game that emphasizes needing to fit into this society, needing to blend and conform, and then maybe making you make hard choices on whether to stand out in a crisis or slip between the cracks to stay unnoticed and make life easier. I really like the idea of the society and the joy and needing to fit in, and it doesn't feel like any of these aspects were expanded upon enough. It feels so disjointed and out of place. But it feels like there's a real solid game in there whereby you have to sneak around pretending to be on joy, you know, maybe having to take joy when you don't want to. These things never really surfaced during my playthrough of the game and from what I've seen. Additionally, if you want people to enjoy the scenery, you have to make it interesting. You have to make it worth it. When you have 10 grannies spouting the same line at you over and over again, you start to slip out of the game. You're no longer immersed or enjoying it. That sandbox, you know, get rid of that. You don't need it. If you bring your world to life with characters and scenery that's unique and intriguing, then your players will explore it because they want to, and not because you keep sending them reeling across the map like a drunken Bobby. The quests and main storyline, also pretty uninspired and aggravating. Go here, talk to person, go there, get thing, come back to person, talk, give thing, rinse, repeat. Half of your time will be spent walking, running, or banging your head on your desk while running or walking. How about quests where we have to assist the mad scientist with her research into power sources and alternate dimensions? How about being forced into training the geriatric soldiers? Where's the quest where we dress up as a Bobby and walk the streets and have to act like a Bobby? The crazy doctors who seem like secret police. Infiltrating them and becoming one of them seems like a fascinating storyline. There's so much potential, and it's wasted on a game that is a walking simulator that has nothing interesting to walk to or see. Now, I do want to take a moment to say what I did enjoy about the game as well. I enjoyed one of the characters, the last one. the Scottish soldier. I thought he was really interesting. I thought his story was actually satisfying and had a few answers in it. The other two characters' stories were not great. They didn't really expand on much, and it was... it just wasn't great. I think some of the scenes, the interactions between the characters, felt reasonably fun and entertaining and occasionally funny and realistic. I did actually quite like it. It seems like there were maybe some very compact areas of the game which actually had like a loving touch and proper attention paid to it, but there were just, it was just too many, it was just too far and too few between. It was good when it was really had attention paid to it, but I'd say every 5 minutes max in every hour of gameplay, that's how it felt to me. So now we start moving towards the end. I didn't touch on or mention the bugs and bad optimization, the pointless cutscenes and flashbacks. I didn't wonder whose fault it was, whether it was the devs or the publisher, whether they were lazy, forced to, or even just decided to take on too much. These things don't matter so much, it's done, and it won't fix anything to tear the game apart on these points. So I'm going to leave you with a summary. If we want a game like this next time to do better, then in my opinion, it needs to focus on story, focus on the important gameplay aspects, and definitely not spread itself too thin over multiple weak and pointless gameplay aspects. If the game has plot points and story points that are revealed, then go into them properly and don't let them trail off with no payoff. Really commit to your game. I have so much more respect for a game that tries to achieve its goal than one that keeps changing direction. And that's what it felt this game did. If you want to make a sandbox survival game, then commit to it. It could have worked. If you want to make story and setting intriguing and important, commit to it. It could have worked. Both together, it just didn't work. So I'd be interested in playing either of those games. I just wasn't impressed with the car crash of both, tangled together in an ugly mess that I ended up being presented with. And finally, I understand the impulse to defend a game. I really do. But you do nothing to help the games industry by always defending a product, by standing by it, even as it convulses and throws up on your feet. It's also important to criticize. It's important to encourage better when we know it can be achieved. Otherwise, the only message you send is that you're willing to buy and play whatever garbage they make. And if that's what you send out there, then that's what you're going to get, because it's cheaper and it's easier. That said, I wish the best to all devs and players in the game industry. Keep trying, keep slogging. I couldn't make a game to save my fucking life.
Oh, God.
It is very dangerous to put your hands outside the windows of the train.
Arthur, where are you? Arthur! How did you go? Arthur! Arthur!
I should just take my joy, shouldn't I? Right. Happiness is a choice. Snug as a bug on a drug.